I got a phone call from Shriyan's dad, and he said, our daughter is kidnapped.
My brother called me and he said, Anni, you better sit down. I could hear in his voice that something was really wrong. He said, Anni's been kidnapped.
And they decided just to go there and of course, pay whatever they wanted, whatever they would have asked for.
In the morning, around 8 o'clock, Shriyan's brother calls me and says, have you heard? They found the car. I'm like, oh, how is she? How is Anni doing? No, Anni, they found the car with Anni's body in it. Then I hang up and then I realize I have to call my dad.
I went from Gothenburg to Amsterdam, and in Amsterdam I got the news that found Anni's body in a car, dumped somewhere. And then the journey from Amsterdam to Cape Town, it was a nightmare.
He was expecting to go there to bring Anni back, and I tell him, like, Anni's dead. He just starts crying. I hear that he starts crying, and there's nothing I can do.
I pray and wish nobody gets that journey. Nobody should experience such a journey from getting the news of your daughter being dead and you're going not to see your daughter but a dead body.
A honeymoon for a British couple has ended in tragedy just hours after their holiday began in Cape Town.
This morning, the body of a 28-year-old woman was found in a car in Khayelitsha. She and
the 28-year-old woman was travelling with her husband in a shuttle when two armed men approached them.
Anni Dewani, as well as the driver, were both thrown out of the vehicle.
It was here where the 31-year-old man sought help from police.
An extensive search of the vehicle resulted in the discovery of the hijacked vehicle in Linguletu West.
The man was dropped off at a location in Harare while his companion was found dead.
The suspects fled and are yet to be arrested.
Police are urging the public to come forward with any information relating to the murder of a UK tourist in Gugulethu last night.
I got a phone call and the person on the phone told me, hey, Brafani, come quick, there's some body lying dead in a car in Khayelitsha. I don't think I'm interested in a dead body in Khayelitsha because I've seen a lot of dead bodies. So the guy called me back and said, no, but Brafani, she's English. So I picked up my camera and I started running out of the house.
It seemed like a random tragedy, a case of two naive tourists finding themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time.
When I arrived there, the cops had the whole street cordoned off with, police tape. They really took care. They had gloves on. They had plastic covering their feet. And I've never seen them being so precise on a body in the township. I normally would see it on Sky News, where cops cordon off the whole thing, or they put a marquee over the place where the person died.
A horrific crime story making headline news and outraging South Africans in a country where violent crime is an everyday occurrence. But this murder would be different.
Despite the fact that as South Africans we've become a little bit sanitized to violent crime, I think this touched a nerve, especially due to the fact that it was now getting foreign press.
Fani Jason, a freelance photographer, has been following the case from the beginning.
What amazed me is how far some of the British tabloids moved. I mean, she was killed in Khayelitsha. Sunday morning, the Monday morning, the first English journalists arrived on the shores of South Africa.
The South African police had to act fast. bringing several people in for questioning.
There is a second suspect that has been arrested. The investigations are continuing.
They were married for just 2 weeks. Newlyweds, Shireen and Anni Dewani, came to South Africa on their honeymoon. A young and attractive couple, both from wealthy and respected Indian families. This was to be the start of a new life together. But just 3 days into their journey, their union is cut short.
It's hard, extremely hard, to just think that way she's not coming back. Unfortunately, she's not. We've lost something that is, we are never going to get it back.
On the banks of Lake Vern in central Sweden lies the small tourist town of Mariestad. It is here where Anni's family, the Hindochas, live. Refugees after being banished from Uganda during Idi Amin's rule in 1972, the Hindochas settled in Sweden.
The closest thing we've had was the family. We've grown up together, all of us, and we've seen tough times together, very hard, harsh times. And that has welded us in a way that we are extremely close, even today.
While the investigation continues on the other side of the world in South Africa, the family continue on their journey of finding closure.
Yeah, this is where Anni used to lie on a special bed with loud music and just relax. That's what she loved. That's what she really loved.
The youngest daughter of Vinod and Neelam Hindocha and sister to Ami and Anish, Anni was always a favorite.
She was the heart in our family. When the family gathered and she was around, people would always laugh because she would give on herself that it's okay to fool around or start singing in front of everyone or start playing a game.
She could just sometimes just call me and say, Anish, I love you the most in the world, and then just hang up. Like that was Anni. She, the family was everything for her, and for us, Anni was everything as well, and it just...
After her studies, Anni moved to Sweden's capital city, Stockholm, to work as an engineer for a telecommunications company. During this time, she grew a special bond with her sister.
She loved being here because of the kids.
She loved children. The most she loved was Ami's two kids, William and Alicia, my grandchildren.
Today, when I talk to Anni's work colleagues, they would tell me, it feels like I know your kids because Anni used to have pictures all over her office desk of my kids.
She always used to say, Papa, will I have these cute kids when I get married? Of course you'll have kids.
In 2009, during a trip to London, Anni met Anni Dewani through mutual friends.
When they went out on the first date, she didn't like him so much, but then they went out on a second date, and then slowly she started to like him.
Anni was 30, 2 years older than Anni, raised in an upmarket suburb in Bristol, England. Here, the Dewanis are a wealthy and respected family in the Indian community. A successful chartered accountant, Anni helped run the family business of nursing homes.
And one day she calls me and says, Papa, I'm coming home with Shriyan on this Saturday. We felt very proud. You found somebody you like and he likes you. It's very nice. Bring him home and let's meet him. He wanted to stay in a hotel, but we refused. He said, you must stay at our house. So he stayed in our house, and we really liked him. Pretty impressive boy, good-looking, smart, and he was educated, and Anni liked him, and he liked Anni.
He was a really nice guy. I liked him at first.
The long-distance relationship grew, with Anni travelling between Stockholm and London. In February of 2010, Anni resigned from her job and moved to England. Just 3 months into her move, Shrien proposed. The wedding was to be held in India.
She lived in India for almost 3 months and planned the whole wedding for herself.
In my lifetime, I'll never witness another lavish wedding. This was something out of this world, and that was what Anni wanted. I gave my daughter to a person whom I believed would take care of her throughout her life. That's what parents would do, a normal parent would do, and say, you be happy, both of you, build a family and live a happy married life.
I saw her 3 days after the wedding in India. We were sitting and having breakfast, and she came tip-top dressed into the breakfast room and gave us all a hug and gave the kids a hug and said, like, I'll see you in England in December or so, or when I come home. And that's the last time I saw her.
2 weeks later, Anni would be dead. Back in South Africa, Shrien was allowed to repatriate Anni's body back to the United Kingdom. Before he left, he gave a statement to police, describing how the couple and their driver were attacked by 2 armed gunmen while driving through the township of Gugulethu.
Hijackers, they've got one motive. They don't just kill somebody. They take the parts they need, or they take the car they want because they've got an order for the car. But now here's a car that was supposed to be hijacked and somebody's lying dead in it.
Police had 3 suspects in custody. The Dewani's shuttle driver Robert Zola Tonga, the 3rd victim of the hijacking, assisted police with the investigation.
Zola was interviewed by the police, firstly to find the hijacked vehicle, and then when her body was found.
But a week after the hijacking, Tonga hands himself in.
It became quite apparent to the police that he had been involved.
To hear that Zola was involved, I didn't want to believe it's Zola that I know. It's my brother. I believed he was also hijacked. He didn't know anything about, because to me, it was not Zola who can do such a thing.
Robert Zola Tonga was a local driver working for an executive shuttle service. During his off time, he would use his girlfriend's vehicle to shuttle tourists from the airport for extra cash. Tonga had no criminal record.
He was a very responsible person. He had to take care of Coco and his mother also. And he has his sister still going to school.
Tonga is set to appear in the Cape High Court. He strikes a deal with state prosecutors and agrees to reveal all.
When I heard it's going to High Court, then I started thinking, no man, this is getting serious.
The frenzy that ensued was something I don't think anyone expected. The environs of the High Court was cordoned off. The bank of photographers, the pure number of journalists attending made it quite a daunting prospect.
I saw him from far. He was still the humble man I know he was, but he looked so miserable.
This is the Hindocha's first chance to hear what exactly happened on that fateful night. Lawyer William de Graaff reads out Tonga's version to the court. In exchange for his testimony, Tonga could face a lighter sentence.
It's not a simple situation where you sit down and between prosecution and defense is a decision made to do a plea bargain. The family in this case would have to be consulted.
Since Anni and Shrien were not yet legally married and only had a traditional wedding, it was Anni's father Vinod who had to agree to this process. Terrifying details of a plot emerge. Tongo confesses to taking part in the botched hijacking, but he points to newlywed husband Shrien Dewani as being the mastermind behind his own wife's murder. The picturesque city of Cape Town attracts millions of tourists to its shores every year. For the newlywed couple, this was to be an idyllic setting for their honeymoon. For Anni, it was all a surprise.
I think her mother-in-law slipped that they were going to South Africa, but she didn't really know, so...
After spending the first leg of their South African holiday at a game lodge, the Dewanis head into Cape Town on the Friday afternoon. Instead of using their hotel's dedicated shuttle service, Shrien opts for a local shuttle taxi at a cheap rate.
Zola ended up transporting the Dewanis from the airport to the Cape Grace Hotel.
The Cape Grace is one of the city's most exclusive hotels, perched on the waterfront.
According to him, the impression was created it's a normal married couple who are together, romantically involved. They get to the Cape Grace and Anni exits the vehicle first, at which stage he is asked to wait by Shrien, who goes inside for a very short while. And he came out, they had a discussion in the vehicle, and that was when the famous or infamous words were uttered that he wanted someone taken off the scene. He immediately interpreted to mean that someone had to be killed. According to Zola, he didn't have the resources in order to carry out Shrien Dewani's instruction or request. He said to him that he knew a friend who would possibly know or be associated with persons able to do this.
And that person is accused number one, 33-year-old Monde Mbolombo, a receptionist at another hotel.
Zola departs the Cape Grace, goes to Monde's place of work, and they contact accused number two, Mr. Kwabe.
Mziwa Madoda Kwabe, a 27-year-old unemployed youth.
The amount of 15,000 was bandied about. My understanding is that Monde was to get the amount of 5,000 and the person who actually carried out the killing was supposed to get the remaining 10,000 rand.
The amount to be paid to Zola Tongo is still in dispute.
Zola's compensation was going to be sorted out at a later stage between him and Mr. Dewani, which did in fact happen.
The next morning, Tongo takes Shrien to Green Marcus Square in the city centre. They enter this jewellery store where Shrien converts his money into local currency.
Zola said that there was quite a bit of money exchanged. They in fact had to bring more money or source more funds in order to change all the dollars that were exchanged.
During this time, Anni's father, Vinod, calls her, but it's his son-in-law who answers.
So I said, Shrien, how is everything? He says, everything is fine. I'm in the marketplace changing money. I just reacted pretty fast at that stage. I said, why are you changing money at the marketplace? Oh, he says, it's a better rate here. I asked him, where is Anni? I want to talk to Anni. And he says, Anni's in the hotel, but I'll see that she calls you back.
When one changes forex, you have to produce your passport. Now, this was cash that Shrien had brought into the country, so that I would assume there wouldn't be a paper trail.
After an hour or so, Anni calls back, and she says, Papa, I'm here. South Africa is so lovely. Cape Town is so nice, and there we are staying. I think we should buy a flat here. She tells me, it's beautiful here.
In Tongo's court statement, he claims that during this time, Shrien suggested to him a hijacking should be staged to cover up the murder. After Shrien is dropped back at the hotel, Tongo heads to Khayelitsha to discuss the plan with the hitmen.
Monday is unable to make the meeting. He was going to be the pivot between Zola Tongo and, at that stage, Mziwa Madora Kwabe. Zola went on his own, collected Mr. Kwabe, who then indicated that they were to pick up someone else, and that was accused number 3.
Kolile Ngeni, a 25-year-old. Kwabe and Mgeni agreed to take part in the plan for an alleged fee of 10,000 rand. The hijacking and murder of Annie would take place that night. But there is a hitch. Tongo is delayed in picking up the couple from their hotel.
And according to him, a very worried Dewani calls him in order to inquire where he is.
When he finally arrives, he is an hour late. He drives the couple in the direction of Gugulethu, a township on the outskirts of Cape Town. It is here where the hijacking is to take place.
This results in them missing the hitmen at the scene because they'd already left.
With the plan botched, Tongo drives Shrien and Annie a further 40 kilometers out of the city to an area called the Strand, where they have dinner at the local surfside restaurant. During this time, Tongo again makes contact with the hitmen. They arrange a hit for later that night. After a quick meal, the shuttle heads back down the N2 highway, where they again turn into the township of Gugulethu. Shrien told police Annie was persistent that she wanted to see what nightlife in the townships was like. That is why they returned to an area seldom visited by tourists after dark. It is known for its high crime rate.
This evening, when she died, I've seen the CCTV. She was wearing a short dress and high heels, and she was really dressed up for a fancy restaurant, not going on a night tour somewhere. And as far as I know, Anni knows the danger of going anywhere in the middle of the night. She would not have wanted to go there.
In his confession, Tongo claims several text messages were exchanged between himself and Shrien, discussing payment for the job. Shrien said the money would be found in an envelope behind the passenger seat.
This time, they do manage to meet each other, and the fake hijacking is then staged.
Kwabe was at my door, pointing a firearm at me. The Dewanis were made to lie down on the back seat, and Kwabe drove off. Anni Dewani and I continued to pretend that we were being hijacked by Mgeni and Kwabe. Kwabe traveled for a short distance before he stopped near the police barrack in Gugulethu, where I was ordered to get off the vehicle. They then drove off with Anni Dewani.
Solo goes to Gugulethu police station and makes a statement.
Back in Sweden, Annie's family are told about her disappearance.
I got a phone call from Shrien's dad, and he said, our daughter is kidnapped, and Shrien is all right, but Anni, they've taken Anni.
Me and my husband sat talking the whole night, and somehow I told him, Annie's not going to get out of this alive. And he goes, you're just crazy. She's going to come back, and we're all going to laugh about all this.
And after half an hour, I get another phone call from South Africa, and this time it's Shrien. The first time was, of course, Shrien's dad from Bristol. And now Shrien calls me and says, Dad, I'm sorry, I could not take care of your daughter. So I said, what do you mean? You could not take her? She's not dead. She'll be all right, don't worry, I'm coming, I'll come, we'll pay them whatever they want. Then again, he just ignored those words I said, but he said, Dad, I'm very sorry, I could not take care of your daughter. And we decided just to go there and pay whatever they wanted. And we went to the hotel, Cape Grace, and found out that she was shot with one bullet in the neck, and she was gone. My little girl. She was no more with us then.
Up to the court, this is the original signed by the accused, myself, and Mr. de Graan.
Zola Tongo's version of the events is accepted by the court. For his guilty plea, he receives a lighter sentence.
You are effectively sentenced to 18 years direct imprisonment.
I was so shocked. So shocked. I couldn't go back to work after that. I was supposed to go back to work. I couldn't. I just came back and slept.
My brother trusted and still trusts Anni Dewani. He gave her daughter to him, and now he's a suspect.
By the time Tongo gave himself up to the police, Shreen was back in the UK. That was the problem.
On the 7th of December 2010, South African police issue a warrant for Anni Dewani's arrest. He voluntarily hands himself into British authorities and is later released on £2,000 bail.
She was my beautiful daughter, whom I miss very much. The house seems empty without her. I miss her very much, every moment. Every day of my life, we think about you. It's not a single moment that I haven't thought about you. Before I go to bed, also, I hope I could see you once more and talk to you. It was painful to see all the things that happened to her in Cape Town. I just keep on thinking, it's very difficult. What was her last words? I hope I could find out her last words and what she would have gone through this last moment and everything. It's just painful.
Before Anni's wedding, I had a laughing, joying family. After Anni's death, we are very close. There's no joy in our family anymore.
Today our life is totally changed. I've been visiting a psychiatrist every week. My daughter is the same. My wife isn't well. Well, our life is changed, totally changed. The loss of Anni has really affected us in such a big way.
It's not the same anymore at all, and the only thing we discuss about at home is Anni, and it's just it feels so empty right now.
They have taken Anni's death so hard. Both my mom and dad still, they don't sleep at night. They go to bed 11, 12 at night and they wake up at 4 o'clock and can't sleep because they're dreaming about Anni, or they're thinking about her, or they start crying. And they don't want to show me that they are crying or being so upset, so they do it during nighttime when I'm maybe not there or not listening, or when nobody's listening.
We asked Dewanis if we could have her things back. Those were the bags, her clothes that was given to her, both to her from my brother, presents, and my brother has them. But none of the family members has even opened those bags. We don't have the courage to do it. First time we watched the wedding videos, I think after 5 minutes we all cracked when we saw Anni happy dancing. We could not see that none of the family members has seen the film or the photos which was taken during the wedding.
And then we wanted to go to the place where she was found and the whole route where and how she was murdered. Then we decided we do a little small ceremony to make Anni feel that we are here for you, Anni. We laid 28 roses there she was found. And we felt, truly speaking, when we were there, we felt the presence of Anni. Somehow, that, oh, Papa and Mama are here now. And one thing she knew was, wherever she was, any day, she would say, my Papa will do this, my Papa will help me. This time I wasn't there.
As the family battle to make sense of it all, reporters begin to scratch the surface. Stories of a troubled relationship and tension before the wedding begin to emerge.
It's 3 weeks before the wedding. She threw the ring on him and said, I don't want to get married to you. And Shriyan's dad calls me and says, Anni wants to call off the wedding.
I would just say, Anni, you're so stressed. It's just wedding stress. Just give it a chance. And eventually she did. She went back to him.
We didn't know why she threw the ring, but I believe he pushed her away at one stage in the hotel, and she didn't like that.
And sometimes I feel that maybe I shouldn't have persuaded her to go back to him. I don't know.
And then a bombshell. Questions around Anni Dewani's sexuality are raised. A male prostitute who goes by the name The German Master claims to have had sex with Shriyan on several occasions. Shriyan denies it.
Anni told me at one stage that Papa, Shriyan says he doesn't believe in sex before marriage. And she found it strange, but I told her, Anni, you should be very proud because he's a pure Hindu, a good Hindu.
At Anni's funeral in North London, the Hindutchas noticed Shriyan's strange behaviour towards them.
Shriyan wanted to put bangles on Anni, and he took her bangles and was forcing it to the hand. And those bangs, her hand was stiff, so it wouldn't go in. And he was really forcing it. And my cousin said, please stop, you're hurting her. And then he just dropped her hand like that, and it was so rough. And I can still hear that clunk when her hand hit the metal thing she was lying on. It was just so rough. I told Shriyan, tomorrow before everything starts, I would like Mom and Dad to say a proper goodbye to Anni because they really need this. And he looks me in the face, and in front of Anni, he just tells me, you're not allowed to. Afterwards, I talked to my aunt about it, and she said, no, we're going back to the funeral parlor. Of course, you're allowed to say a proper goodbye before everything starts. We're standing there with the coffin. Anni is lying there, and we're all holding each other's hands around her, and one at a time goes up to Anni and says whatever he or she wants to say. We were supposed to get half an hour, but after 10 minutes, Shireen walks in and starts shouting and says, you're insulting me, I'm supposed to be a part of this. And I go up to him and say, Shireen, get out of here, please, because you're spoiling our moment. We had a really spiritual moment, which was spoiled when he walked in. So his brother takes him out, and we continue our moment, but the moment was not so spiritual anymore. My mom and dad finally got 2 minutes. That's what they got for saying goodbye to Anni, which is it's just horrible. She was their daughter of 28 years.
Four months after the murder, Anni Dewani appears at an extradition hearing. The British courts hear that he is diagnosed with severe stress and depression. He is also declared a suicide risk. The judge finds that Anni should be extradited back to South Africa to answer the allegations against him.
We all were sitting there, and the last 5 minutes we just took each other's hands and were holding them really, really tight. And when the verdict came, I started to cry. My father had tears in his eyes. It was a relief that things were finally going in a forward direction.
But the victory is short-lived. Anni appeals the decision, and the court agrees to review his extradition only once his condition improves.
We cannot start the mourning process. So our soul is not in peace. We need a closure. Who did this and why? Obviously, things got complicated when Shireen was suddenly a suspect.
The media interest in this case has been overwhelming. Putting the spotlight firmly on the Hindocha family, it has also become like a double-edged sword.
It's been very hard to see her in media every day, almost, and it's affecting, our lives daily, and it's very, very difficult to cope with.
At first, it was very, very disturbing, having media all over. On the other hand, media was also our source for information.
6 months after her murder, Anni's ashes are scattered in a private ceremony on Lake Verne, her favourite place where she loved to swim during the summer holidays. The Dewanis are not invited.
The relation is pretty cold. My brother talked to them just before we left for South Africa, and we have tried to keep this a very neutral position from our side.
Like the township of Gugulethu, Khayelitsha is also situated on the outskirts of Cape Town, an area rarely visited by tourists. This township is known for being a troublesome area.
There's a high unemployment rate. People don't have the resources. The youth are unemployed. And, it's very easy. The crime rate in Khayelitsha is very high. Most of these young boys got nothing to do. They roam around. It's a drug-fested area.
It is here where the accused Mziwa Madora Kwabe and Kolile Mgeni lived before the arrest. Fani Jason has worked on the story from day one. He has gotten to know the families of the two hitmen.
From what I understand from information here, that Mziwa Madoda was hunting Olile, high and low to do this job because he knew that he was in a desperate situation in terms of he wanted money for initiation.
Evelina Mngeni lives here in a modest house that she shares with her grandson Kolile, his brother Luando, and 2 small children. Kolile and Luando share a small shack in the backyard. Evelina believes money might have been Kolile's motive to get involved.
He was desperate for money because he wanted to go to He wanted to go to the bush. And I say to him, Kolile, look here, my child. I'm still busy with the money. Wait for me. Then I keep little bit and little bit and little bit, little bit. Then when I'm ready, then you can go to bush. So he said to me, okay, mommy, I understand. It was not even 3 months. The Dewani comes in Cape Town.
Anni Dewani had to go for circumcision, and the granny couldn't get the money together, and you're supposed to have been there at the age of 18, 19, and Anni Dewani was already 25. He was frustrated because he was way over age and he desperately needed money.
The trial against the 2 accused is also not without its obstacles. Shortly after Kolile Mngeni is arrested, he is diagnosed with a brain tumor, and only after several operations is he able to stand trial. Just like Zola Tongo, Kwabe enters into a plea bargain with the state. He pleads guilty to charges of kidnapping, robbery, illegal possession of a firearm, and murder. Kwabe and Monde Mbolombo become integral witnesses in the state's case against Mngeni, who is now alone in the dock. The day has come, and tension is high at the Cape High Court. Mngeni's trial for the murder of Anni Dewani begins. His family is present, as is Anni's, who've travelled from Sweden to hear how their daughter died. Monde Mbolombo, the state's key witness, testifies how he was the pivot between Tongo and Kwabe. Then it's Kwabe's turn. He tells the court how they robbed the driver and the couple of their belongings, stealing their cell phones, Anni's bracelet, watch and her handbag, and a digital camera. There is no mention of Anni's £25,000 engagement ring. Kwabe tells the court how they drove to Khayelitsha, dropped off Shrien, and drove away with Anni. Shrien would seek help from a local resident at this house, who then alerts police. At the same time, Zola Tongo, the driver, informs the police in Gugulethu of a hijacking.
While I was driving the vehicle, Mngeni shot and killed the deceased. Mngeni was seated in the front passenger seat at the time that he fired the single shot. I got scared and nervous and drove the vehicle to Elita Park, where I parked the vehicle at the side of the road. I got out and saw that Mngeni was looking for the bullet casing. I opened the back door of the vehicle, found the bullet, and picked it up. I threw the bullet casing into a stormwater drain while Mngeni and I were running away.
There's a woman that had actually met the hijackers that morning. She spoke to them, and then she told me that, no, Putfani, I met these 2 men. As they were parking the combi, we were approaching, and as we got close by, we saw them walking, we greeted them, we said to them, how are you guys? They said, no, we are all fine. They're very cool and collective, but this one guy, as he was about to take the corner, he remembered that they forgot something in the combi. He went back, opened the car door, and then took out something from the back seat. He came back with a brown envelope, and they ran off.
Judging by the distance from where Shrien was dropped and Anni's body was later found, a mere 4 kilometers apart, it's simple to deduce that Anni would have been shot almost immediately. This stinging testimony by Kwabe buries Mngeni in the end, who is named as the triggerman, the man who shot Annie.
Kwabe's version dovetails very nicely with Zola Tongo's. At the end of the day, his version was accepted. He was a crucial witness in the prosecution of his co-accused. So I would say that there is definitely a case to be answered as far as Mr. Dewani is concerned.
Before ending his testimony, Kwabe then turns to Annie's father, asking for forgiveness. The post-mortem report reveals that Annie was shot at close range of about 30 centimeters. The bullet traveled through her hand, grazed her shoulder, entered her neck and exited out the back, where it became lodged in the leather seats behind her. Annie was left to bleed to death. There were also bruises found on her inner left thigh, fingerprint marks, 4 on her inner thigh and 1 on the outer. The court did not elaborate on the marks.
It was very difficult to digest that. But at the same time, one glimpse of happiness was that he never said at any point that my daughter was abused. And that was something we really can live on.
With the end of the trial in sight, Mngeni finally testifies. He points the finger at Kwabe as the person who shot Annie while trying to grab her handbag. But it was too late.
It is difficult to imagine the absolute terror and horror that she must have endured when she stared down the barrel of the gun.
Kwabe is given a reduced sentence of 25 years imprisonment. Monde Mbolombo receives immunity from prosecution. But presiding judge Robert Henny finds that despite Mngeni's illness, he has shown no remorse, even with the mountain of evidence against him, unlike that of Tongo and Kwabe.
Although from a relatively poor background, did not commit this offense due to poverty or his dire socio-economic circumstances. This crime was perpetrated out of pure greed.
The judge finds Mngeni guilty of premeditated murder and robbery with aggravated circumstances, but Mngeni is acquitted of kidnapping and sentenced to life imprisonment.
The fact that the international image of our country has been tarnished and suffered immensely by the commission of this offence, where a perception could easily have been created that in this country one can randomly, at a price, approach any person and such person would without hesitation agree to commit such a murder.
With Mngeni being jailed today, it means 3 of 4 accused have been sentenced now. But the story of my innocent daughter, Annie, who lost her life here in Cape Town on a honeymoon, still remains incomplete. The full picture will only emerge when Shireen comes down to Cape Town.
It's 3 years since Annie's brutal death. Anni Dewani has had 2 extradition hearings. British courts agree that he should be extradited to South Africa to answer questions about the hijacking. Each time, he has successfully appealed.
If you say you're not guilty, you have nothing to do with this, then why prolong this process? Go down there, fight for your justice, fight for your rights.
She does not want to go to South Africa, and this legal process is taking so long time. My father has been to every hearing so far and sat through all these hearings without saying a word and just accepting everything that's been said.
Tongo's close friend, Sia, finally visits him in prison.
I was angry for him, but I wanted to see him. When I was waiting there, I was thinking, how is he? What must I say to him? Am I going to see the same Zola I know here, or a changed Zola? They called me to come in. So I saw him coming from there to greet me. He was the same Zola. I could see in his eyes he wanted to cry. But then he realized I was not walking alone, and he didn't know that this other person. So, of course, anyone can't allow him or herself to cry in front of a person that you don't know. So I think that helped a lot. But you could see tears wanting to come down from his eyes. The only thing he told me, never get yourself into things that you don't know, things that may end you up here. That's the only thing he said. Further than that, he said nothing, and I didn't even ask him.
People who know us, people who don't know us, sending us enormous amount of mails and text messages, calling us. I don't know how they find our numbers. Supporting us has been an energy kick for us, especially my brother. He reads these messages every day. Every time he reads, he feels a little bit bigger.
It's not a single day, a single minute we don't remember her. If my wife cooks something, she say, oh, Anni would have liked this. The grandchildren come and they also say, Anni was like this.
The thing is, it's very hard to grieve because on one hand, you're thinking about the case, on one hand, you're trying to grieve. So it's so many questions in your mind all the time. What has happened? How is it happened? Why is it happened like this, if it's true? And it's just so many questions and you don't know where to begin.
All we want is a closure, so we can move on. We cannot lose anymore. We've lost life in the family. We lost Anni. We've got nothing more to lose. We only want to know why and for what.